Hey everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is your look at the astrology of November 25th through December 1st, 2024. So this week we are saying goodbye to November. We're also saying goodbye to a lunar month that began back on November 1st at Scorpio new moon. And we are prepping for another new moon. This will be on Sunday, December 1st. So we are sort of in between two different chapters. That's the thing about new moons, is that it opens up these new chapters, these new spaces of time for us to discover and to explore different themes through each of the zodiac signs. So this week we're not just wrapping up a lunar month, we also have Mercury retrograde, and that Mercury retrograde will be at 22 Sagittarius. So there's some focus on Sagittarius in the sky at the moment. It's not just Sagittarius season. Happy birthday, Sagittarius. But as I said a few moments ago, we have that Sagittarius. We have a new moon, Sagittarius new moon December 1st at 9 degrees, and it's going to make for a very different December because we have different elements that are being put, the spotlight's being put on them. We've got fire, we've got air, a bit of a different feel than, let's say, when we were in November. So as always, do say hello. If you're watching live, let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see where other people are in the world. Again, my name is Katie Sweetman, and I'm an astrologer and psychic medium located presently in the rolling hills of central Maryland. And every week we gather live to look at the astrology. And you hear me say it every week, the astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. Don't forget to be a participant. I know we're all human beings. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes we're tired. I know we had a lot of sort of marquee level astrology in November. We had that we had, gosh, my mind blank. We had the Saturn direct at 12 degrees of Pisces. It says that on some level, November is a very structural month. Experiences are wrapping their way around that direct degree and that date of November 15th. We also had that Taurus full moon with the spotlight on Uranus. We were sort of crossing past the lunar nodes this month. Relationships were in the spotlight. And what else we got going on? We also can't forget that Pluto is now in Aquarius. I actually wrote a whole article on Pluto and Aquarius. The link is in my show notes. You can go to my website, empoweringastrology.com. And this is in addition to some information about what Pluto and Aquarius means for each of the 12 zodiac signs, both sun and rising. And how are you feeling? How are you feeling this sort of end of the month? I realize this week has a major holiday here in the United States. How are you feeling or sensing Pluto and Aquarius? It is indeed a new era. I realize that's a big statement. This is not our first foray into Pluto and Aquarius, because we had that first arrival back in March of 2023, from June to 2023, and 2023 and 4 are these shift points into something new. Just your reminder, yes, exhausted. Just your reminder that Pluto is an evolutionary planet. It works differently than the sun, the moon. These are the lights of the astrology. Mercury, Venus, Mars, these are what are called personal planets. Jupiter and Saturn, these are the planets that build our world around us, that get us to see things, to grow and mature in different ways. But then Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, their job is to get us to grow and evolve, and sometimes by any means possible. And I've been thinking a lot about Pluto, and maybe I need to sit more on these thoughts, because I'm just like, what does this mean? And that's, and I've heard other people speak about Pluto and Aquarius, and just a reminder, this is not the age of Aquarius. Two different mechanisms. Maybe we already in the age of Aquarius, but I realize sometimes we have high hopes for what that means, but Aquarius, just like any other zodiac sign, it sort of talks about our life and our world and the world around us. And Aquarius is the second to last zodiac signs. So we're sort of at the end, almost the end of the zodiac, when we reach Aquarius. And Aquarius talks about systems and networks, society, humanity, the social fabric, and really a sign that in its highest of the highs, it can really open us up to new visions, new futures, positive relationships with technology. But with Pluto, there's always two sides to the coin. We can't forget that. And that's part of our personal and our collective work over the next 20 years. I know it's got a lot to, we're going to keep coming back to Pluto in Aquarius, because it's just, continually a lot more to impact. So let's get into this Mercury retrograde. You've heard me say this over and over again, but here's your friendly reminder that all planets turn retrograde. Just not the sun and the moon, but it means that this is something that's not unique to Mercury. I realize Mercury's got a press agent. Everybody seems to know about Mercury retrograde these days, and it's sort of taken on its own life. And of course, you do you. It is your life. If you do not feel comfortable signing things or making big decisions, by all means. I'm just sort of telling you my perspective. My perspective is, don't put your life on hold if you don't want to. Don't put your life on hold, but use Mercury retrograde as sort of the second look. A retrograde planet is now in a yin phase. Yin is more intuitive, it's more critical thinking, it's more reflective. We need to go back to the past. And I could get into a whole other soapbox about, what happens when we reject yin energy. Well, we need the retrograde. We need time to reflect. We can't always go forward. And I'm constantly intrigued, because Mercury retrograde seems to happen right when there's a lot of things going on in the sky. And it's like the universe is saying, okay, just take a moment, meditate, reflect, get quiet, spend time alone. Don't, circle with your thoughts, of course, but really try to see things from a different perspective. Wherever there's a retrograde, there is some level of work to be done to rewind, to retrace our steps. Mercury, it turns retrograde at 22 degrees of Sagittarius, my descendant, by the way, and it will go all the way back to 6 degrees of Sagittarius on December 15th. So that's the framework that we are working with. If I remember correctly, we had a retrograde, I think it was in August. So this is sort of this period that takes us, September, October, parts of November, but really the retrograde period is focusing on the degrees that coincide with November 7th all the way to November 25th. And for those that are interested, the shadow period, meaning when does Mercury leave the degrees that it retraced, that's about this January 3rd, so right after the new year. So we need Mercury retrograde to give us a different perspective, as I said a few moments ago, to consult our intuition. And I was saying, maybe it's a good time to have Mercury retrograde, because this Sagittarius new moon on December 1st at 9 degrees of Sagittarius, it's got a lot of fire. It's got a trine to Mars in Leo. It's got an opposition to Jupiter in Gemini. Jupiter is what's called the ruling planet of Sagittarius. So it is the boss. It is the boss of its energies. It pulls the energies over to Jupiter in Gemini, and we get this really dynamic and interesting opposition between Sagittarius and Gemini. A personal opinion, because I really like Sag and Gemini, and I'm saying this because I have Sag rising and I am a Gemini moon, but these are two signs. This is one of the reasons why I like them. They make our world bigger. Without Sagittarius, and perhaps even without Gemini, we wouldn't have curiosity. We wouldn't want to know more, see more, to go out into the world. When I say make our world bigger, imagine if your life was still in the same four walls, metaphorically speaking, that it was 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, however old you are. Sag, and by extension Jupiter, and I would even go so far to say Saturn, these are planets that want us to grow and to mature. It's a little bit differently than those evolutionary planets I was mentioning in the introduction, but if without them, you wouldn't look up, and I mean that metaphorically speaking. You wouldn't look outside of yourself. You wouldn't have an education. You wouldn't want to travel, and I realize not everybody wants to travel, but travel doesn't have to be literal. It can be metaphorical. We wouldn't, read books. We wouldn't question. We wouldn't get worldly, and so that's that big Sag energy, that I personally have a connection to, but it is an inspirer, it is a motivator. So I said a few moments ago that Sag is a fire sign, or I talked about this fiery energy, the Sag new moon, because again, Sag is a fire sign. Fire in astrology is the first element. We see this back at Aries. Aries, first sign of the zodiac, first fire sign. But it's the fire of new life and new beginnings. We see this certainly in the Northern Hemisphere, that is the fire, the new beginnings that talk about the awakening of spring. I realize this is very Northern Hemisphere. The zodiac is a bit Northern Hemisphere biased. Then we have the second fire sign, and we have Leo. It is the light of the sun. It is the spark within us. It is our passion. It is our joy. It is our creativity. We need this, otherwise we feel flat. We can't create our lives. We don't know who we are. Of course, there's both sides to the coin, so to speak. But then when we get to Sag, it's the fire of the stars, the fire that inspires us and motivates us again to look outside of ourselves, to question, to seek, and to explore. Sagittarius is the sign of the quest. So over December, what are we on a quest for? What are we searching for? We're all 8 billion people, 7 billion people on this planet. We are all on a path. We're all searching for something that's going to feed us and nurture us on a much larger level. It's not the feeding and nurturing of Cancer. It is the feeding and nurturing of the heavens, of the stars. And so sometimes you listen to me, not that I have all the answers, but astrology is a way to look towards the stars, to seek out answers to questions. Some people read books, some people go to church, some people travel, some people seek out adventures, some people say, no, I don't want answers. But we're all searching for something. And so there's an element, because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, to find fulfillment. I know it's a tall order over the next 4 weeks, but this Sag new moon says to each and every one of us, how do we feed ourselves on a larger level? What inspires us and motivates us? What stories do we tell? Sagittarius is a storyteller, sometimes embellishes the story, sometimes they are tall tales. But Sagittarius wants us to share our because God forbid you get hit by a bus tomorrow. How is your legacy going to be transmitted? Or what sort of knowledge do you have that needs to find its next person or people, and to transmit wisdom and knowledge? I think is one of the highest forms of Sagittarius. Another highest form of Sagittarius is to inspire people to be bigger than themselves, and in the best possible way, of course. But like all signs, there is a shadow side to the Sagittarius. It can get judgmental. It can have a narrow worldview or a narrow point of view. And this is where we're seeing that opposition to Gemini and almost at Aquarius, but Gemini and Jupiter and Gemini, because we need to get new information, new ideas. Sag is like the title after the name. We got all those fancy letters that came after all those fancy degrees, but have we sort of forgotten the information and the ideas that were able to get us that degree? We need to go back to the source material. We need to question. We need to be curious. There is an element about speaking and writing and communication throughout December, probably some spicy conversations, especially with that Mars and Leo, the sunshine Mars, the energy. We even have a Gemini full moon on December 15th, this full moon will be with Jupiter. It will be with Mercury, turning direct after its retrograde. And so with that, going back to Mercury retrograde, I think that's a good thing. I think that with all that big Sag energy, sometimes we can, especially with Jupiter and Gemini, sometimes we can just launch, we can just move forward, because fire is typically very fast, it's very hot, it is inspirational, it is motivational, it is about new beginnings. But this is, again, something that's bigger than us, because Sag is a sign that's not personal. We're starting to open up to a part of the zodiac that is collective. So we need that Mercury retrograde to pump the brakes a little bit. We need it to get us to slow down and maybe not be so impulsive with our thinking, to sort of use our critical thinking skills, and maybe even, to the whole point about retrogrades in general, to be reflective, to be intuitive. The other thing that we have throughout this Mercury retrograde, and of course this Sag new moon lunar month, is we have squares to Saturn. This is the other pumping of the brakes that I think will serve us well. Saturn has a lot of bit of a different agenda. Saturn says, okay, but there needs to be accountability. There needs to be maturity. You're going to make a choice, Jupiter and Gemini, but make sure it's the right choice. Weigh your options. Make sure you have all the information before you do that. Sagittarius also gets into matters of faith. What do you believe in? What do you stand for? It doesn't have to be the faith of religion, but the faith that pulls us forward. We need something, hopefully, that pulls us forward, because when we don't have fire, we don't have the element fire, we're stuck in water. And water is emotions, and water reminds us we do need to feel things. But if we don't reach for the fire, then we're stuck in water. We need the fire. We need the support of water to transport us into new beginnings. So this week, we're not quite at that Sagittarius new moon. That's not until December 1st. It'll be at 1:22 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the East Coast of the United States. So for most of the world, it will be Sunday, December 1st, except if you are West Coast or even beyond, it will be on the 30th of November. So before we can get to that new moon, we are wrapping up a Scorpio lunar month, especially with the Scorpio moon on, I think it's part of the Tuesday, which is the 26th into the 27th and 28th. We have Scorpio moons, and so Scorpio moons does pull us back into that watery space, that quiet space, because we're getting into the dark of the moon. It can press on some really tender emotional spots. We do have Venus square Chiron this week. So some of the emotions that are coming up, especially as we hit that new moon, before the new moon, we hit the dark of the moon. We do start the week with the moon in Libra. Just keep in mind that whatever you're feeling might have deep roots. It may not, your emotions may not really be what you think they're about. They might be about something that is unconscious or subconscious, for example. But with Chiron, it always gives us room to heal something, to release something, to undo a knot. So in total, in summary, it is a week where we are wrapping up a lunar month that still pulls us back into the energies of Scorpio. As we start the week, the moon is in Libra, but going into the 26th and 27th and 28th, the moon is in Scorpio. So we are sort of coming back full circle to that Scorpio new moon on November 1st, and a November that really had some big points in the astrology. And then we go into that Sag new moon, and it brings us into a new month. And funny enough, December, here we are coming to the end of 2024. What a year it's been. So maybe we need to get philosophical. Maybe we need to set our sights on something bigger. Maybe we need a different point of view. I don't know. And all in the background, Pluto's now in Aquarius. And so we've got sort of deeper work. We're starting something. We're continuing those first steps that we began in 2023, where a key part of our life is going to begin to shift. Something that we've talked about last week. So also, before I forget, I recorded a segment for a free online summit, Your Path to Empowerment. It is on, the link is in the show notes, and it's not, but it's, sorry, I don't know the address at the moment, but yes, go to the show notes, go to the content, but that's where you can sign up to watch my segment. It repeats, it runs into the beginning of December, and I talk all about astrology as a tool for empowerment, my history with astrology, how I came to astrology, but also looking ahead to 2025. And also in something that I do here, I try to teach about astrology because there's just a lot of stuff that we have been programmed around astrology that may not actually be true. And so it's just to think about astrology a little bit differently, especially as you hear me say, the astrology is 50%, you're the other 50%. Don't forget to participate. So anyway, that is your look at the astrology of this week. We'll go through each of the 12 zodiac signs. Don't forget to listen for your sun sign and your rising sign. It is both. Maybe you resonate with one more than the other, but to listen for both your rising sign and your sun sign gives you two different perspectives that you can overlap and get something that actually may be very unique and prescient to your life. So let's start with Aries. Aries, Mars is your planet. We're going to talk more about this next week, but Mars, your planet, is about to turn retrograde. And how do I know that? Well, I know that from the astrology, but I live out in the middle of nowhere now. And if you look up into the sky, you will see Mars. It's very bright. It's very red. And that's something that happens around the time that it turns retrograde. So fun little astronomy fact, go out and look at the night sky if you can. But that said, wherever Mars is in the sky, wherever it is in the zodiac, that's where your energy is being pulled towards. So what domain is Mars in? It's in Leo, your fifth sign of creativity, self-expression, but more importantly, it's a sign that gets you back into your passion, your joy. It sounds a little bit, I've said this before, perhaps in the last week, we live in a world that says that passion and joy is superfluous, it doesn't make us money, but astrology teaches us that it's essential. So if you have felt burnt out, Aries, Mars is in Leo and it's helping you to re-find yourself. It also gets into questions about identity. Who are you? How do you express who you are? The Mars retrograde starting on December 6th takes you into the new year. We'll talk about this more next week. Is going to give you this period to need to work back and walk back on something. Typically, it's a time to reframe how you use your energy, reframe how you connect to your desires, but we'll talk about more of this next week. The main focus this week, of course, is that Sagittarius new moon on December 1st. Sag is something called your ninth sign. So you step into a lunar month that gets into these bigger questions about what do I believe in, what do I stand for, and what do I think is true. This is a month that for some Aries, it is about faith. For some, it's about getting very philosophical and trying to get more concrete about, what exactly it is that you believe in. For some Aries, it's about travel, exploration, maybe even foreign travel. And for some Aries, it's about education. There is this push and pull that's happening between the ninth, which is this is what I believe in, but also the third, which is where I need to get back to the information, the ideas, I need to weigh my options. And this is going to be a period, especially with Mercury retrograde, where there's a need to reevaluate, reconsider, to make potentially some major decisions about what do you believe in and what do you stand for. Taurus. Taurus, Venus is your planet. It's still in Capricorn. It's kind of in the middle of Capricorn at the moment. And Capricorn, like you, Taurus, is an earth sign. So earth energy is all about the practicalities of life. It's what I need, the resources I need. It's how I feel safe and secure and stable. It's the money that I make. It's the food that I have, the nourishment of my life. And so that's where a lot of this sort of base focuses at the moment. Venus is in a space that does talk about what do you believe in and what do you stand for. Maybe it's getting into these bigger questions about value and worth and what do you invest your time in and how do you see the world and how you see yourself in the world. That said, it is Sagittarius season and we are going into that Sag new moon on December 1st. Sag is something called your 8th sign. In our astrology, of course, you are a Taurus or you're a Taurus rising, but that's just one point. There are 11 other signs that are around you, and each sign is a stand-in for a different part of your life. Sag is your 8th sign, and this is for everybody, not that Sag is everybody's 8th sign, but then the importance of the 8th sign is because it's a space that makes us face ourselves. It's a period, and this happens every time this year, where you go inward. It talks about trust. It talks about intimacy and vulnerability, power, control, whether that's intimacy with a partner, whether that's emotional intimacy with yourself, your ability to open up. Sometimes you'll have experiences that really do press upon these deeper emotions. And so maybe this is how you feel this time of year, but this new moon, especially with the Jupiter and Gemini, it is getting into these bigger questions about value and worth, material stability and security. Who do I trust? What am I investing my time in? And it's a little bit of a push and pull. So for some Tauruses, it's very practical. It's very financial. It's about legacy. It's about inheritances. It's about the future. And for some Tauruses, it's more emotional and making sure that you get your needs met and you feel safe and secure. This is all 2 weeks off of that really powerful Taurus full moon, that put the spotlight on Uranus and Taurus. Whole other conversation, listen to my recording from last week. But that's the thing about being a Taurus the past few years, is that everything has just shaken up. And so maybe with this opposition with the new moon, it's to really find your footing again, to really put and invest your time in the things that actually are going to support you and nourish you. Gemini. So this is a big week for you, especially going into next week, because we have the Sag new moon on December 1st. First, let's talk about Mercury, your planet. It just turned retrograde in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is your relationship sign. So this is a period where it's about connection, it's about socialization, it's about interaction, people coming in and out of your life, and maybe needing to put some focus and energy on the primary relationships in your life. And if you have a primary partnership, that, of course, is front and center as you go through the rest of the month. Mercury turning retrograde may bring up something between you and a partner, or between you and another person. Keep in mind that Mercury, during its retrograde, it will turn direct on December 15th. It's making It's making a square to Saturn. And Saturn energy means that this is a period where you may need to reevaluate something. You may need to set boundaries. You need to sort of speak about something, be serious, be mature, be accountable, and maybe even to make a serious decision. It's possible that whatever decision that you're making, it's still playing out until that last square, which I believe is at the end of December. Mercury doesn't leave its retrograde shadow until the beginning of January. So really probably this is taking you into the beginning of January. So really, whatever is coming up between you and somebody else, or whatever it is that's happening in your life, Gemini, it may need at least a month to play out. We'll see. take notes. Saturn energy is a little bit different than sort of this big, bold Sag energy that we're having, this giving you this point of renewal with relationships. It's to really set a metric for the people that are in your life. And I think that's really where the Saturn energy is coming in. If you're going to have a partnership, if you're going to have a connection, if you're going to have certain people in your life, they need to be this tall to ride, so to speak. So this continues in general to be a larger time in your life, Gemini. Saturn is still in your 10th. It's still pushing you to take the next big steps up in your life. And this is all really focusing on December. And do keep in mind, this is something that we'll talk more about in coming weeks and even in the new year. The eclipses are starting to shift and they're going to go into Virgo, Pisces. And I know you're thinking, wait, but I'm not a Virgo or a Pisces, but those are two major signs in your astrology. They are your career, that's Pisces, and there's also your home environment. So look towards Sag new moon, Sag season, and even this Gemini full moon on December 15th to really start to tie into the eclipse to come. I think it's on March 15th of 2025. And that's going to start to really press upon career and your home environment, your living situation, relationships. So it's just a lot of things all around for Gemini. Cancer. So the moon is your planet and it's moving from Libra all the way to Sag this week. I want to quickly spotlight Libra because Libra is your sign of home and family, roots, foundation. It's your living situation. It's your household. While the moon will only spend a day and a half here this week, do keep in mind that you still had an eclipse here back on October 2nd. That space is still alive. That energy, that point of energy is still alive. So every time the moon passes it, like Monday, like Tuesday, you may see something about your home environment that's connected to a bigger story that's happening in your life. So there's that. Speaking of the moon, by the end of the week, the moon will be a new moon. It'll be a new moon in Sagittarius. And for you, Cancer, Sagittarius is something called it's your sixth sign. Do the math real quick. It is your sixth sign. And so over the next 4 weeks, it's time to focus on what runs your life. And I know that sounds super boring, but we need a sense of organization. We need rituals and craft and practice and follow through. We need operations. We need commitment. We need to focus on our health and wellness. And so this is a new moon that takes you into, of course, the end of the month. And so maybe you want to make some healthy initiatives as well. The ruling planet of this new moon is over in the part of the chart that talks about community, friends, your social network, looking towards the future. Maybe this is a new moon to get involved in a social issue. Wait, I'm doing the wrong astrology. It's in the 12th. Sorry. It's about you sort of finding the bridge between heaven and earth. It's about not just taking care of your physical body, but also taking care of your spiritual body, your spiritual needs, needing to find some retreat, to recharge and reflect, but also to make sure you have your feet on the ground. And I think on a practical level, it's to use December to get really organized and advance the new year. And especially with these energies making squares to Saturn, if you've had some sort of shift throughout the year, maybe even a shift of like your priorities, how do you anchor those into your day-to-day life and your day-to-day practices? Leo, the sun is your planet and it's in Sagittarius right now. So we've got a double dose of fire. We got Mars in Leo. So it's like lots of fire at the moment. So how are you feeling, Leo? Do you feel motivated? Do you feel inspired? Or do you feel no, none of the above? I got Pluto now in Aquarius. Or maybe it's just complicated. On paper, at least, there's a lot of energy in your chart at the moment. On one hand, Mars is sort of kicking your butt to move forward, to take action. Mars in your first or Mars in your sign is very self-motivated and self-directed. Sagittarius new moon is in something called your fifth. It gets into these bigger questions about who are you? How do you express yourself, your talents, your gifts, and your abilities? It's also about passion, using this new moon to renew or renovate that sense of spark within. And then I think with Jupiter over in the 11th, it is to share your talents, your gifts, your abilities with the world. It is to take the best of yourself and to put it out there. It's to be seen. Typically, that's something that Leo loves. I realize we got some shy lions that are probably listening, but there's only one you in the world. Don't forget about it. There may also be some tension between you and how you express yourself versus how you connect within your friends or your community. Maybe there's a desire to spend more time with community, but all of this was with a square to Saturn, and that Saturn energy is bringing up a lot of vulnerability, like, can I be myself? Can I share myself? And that's part of this deeper alchemy that you're working through at the moment. Virgo. Mercury is your planet and it's just turned retrograde. Don't worry, don't panic. It's just part of that natural ebb and flow of life. So Mercury at this moment is in something called your fourth sign. It's been there the past few weeks. I can't remember offhand when it went into your fourth sign, but this is by and large a period, and this takes you into throughout December to focus on home, family, and your home environment. Bare minimum, maybe you are sort of surface level, you're spending a lot of time with family. I realize that's typically this time of year in general. Maybe it's about sort of these bigger questions about who are my family? Like, do I actually want to spend time with them? Or maybe you're spending time alone, but you want to spend time in your home environment. Having a Sag new moon in this space, it's very common for there to be a shift in the household during this time. Not every Virgo or Virgo rising is going to move at this time. Maybe you're just feeling this push, especially as you go into next week, to change things up in your living situation. Or maybe you are planning for a move either in December or in the new year. Mercury is retrograde. That doesn't mean that your life has to grind to a halt. It's just a reminder to trust your instincts, to listen to your intuition, and to weigh your options. We just can't punch the gas at the moment. There is this push and pull that's happening between home, family, your inner world, your inner needs, but also the external world, your duties and responsibilities, your public life, and even your career. How do you find the balance between the both? You do have this square to Saturn, that's going to be with you into the new year. Saturn is Saturn. Saturn just says, things take time, or life will often require more of us. We need to be accountable. We need to follow through. We need to show up. We need to honor our commitments and time. And Saturn continues to be in a part of your chart that talks about your relationships, not just your intimate partnerships, if that's relevant to you, but really trying to find the balance between your wants, your needs, the needs and wants of somebody else, the needs and wants of the world around you. I know it sounds a little bit exhausting, Virgo, but that's part of needing to find that zen at the moment. And that's maybe what the retrograde is saying. Don't forget about your needs, your wants, investing in the things that are truly important to you. Of course, life is a dance. Mercury will be retrograde until the 15th, just in time for that Gemini full moon on the 15th of December. But like I said, Saturn continues to be with you. So it's possible that if you are sort of thinking about a decision or a major decision, it's still playing out into the new year. It doesn't mean that you need to, again, hit the brakes, but don't forget to listen to yourself. I think that's really the deeper message with this retrograde season. Who comes? Libra. So Venus is your planet, and Venus continues to be in Capricorn. Capricorn forms the base and foundation of your astrology. So I think it's another couple of weeks that Venus is down here. It just says that this is a time to really focus, to invest time in your roots, your foundation, your living situation. Of course, everybody's different, and I realize family is sometimes complicated. We are in the season, certainly going into the end of the year, where it is more family focus. But I would say, Libra, it's just to use this time to refocus on your living situation, refocus on the household. Venus did make some interesting shift points past the lunar nodes, and I just wanted to highlight that. That was a week ago, a week and a half ago, and I wanted to highlight that because, we had that October 2nd solar eclipse in Libra. And I realized that you're thinking October is 2 months ago, but it's like a moment in time that it opened something, and that we'll have moments of astrology, November, December, January, that will activate this eclipse, that will be like these shift points. So part of the shift point is about family, or it's about getting your needs met, or it's about feeling safe and secure in your home environment, for example. We do have a Libra moon as we start the week that is echoing a little bit back towards that solar eclipse and the powerful new beginnings that it introduced into your life. That said, Sagittarius new moon. Sagittarius new moon is later this week on the 1st of December, and Sagittarius is something called your third sign. This is the month, December, that's to focus on voice communication, how you think and listen and learn. On a surface level, maybe you are planning trips, you need to move, you need to get out there. Maybe you're thinking about your education. Maybe it's about conversations that you're having. Maybe it's about choices and options that you are weighing. This new moon gets into these bigger questions about faith and truth and meaning. What do you believe in, Libra? What do you stand for? And what do you think is true? All this energy is playing off Saturn. Saturn continues to be in your 6th. So this was 2024, and even throughout 5 is a time where it's like you need to take like a practice seriously. You need to create structure in your day-to-day life. You need to have follow through. You need rituals. It's not enough to say, yeah, I'll do that. It's to really have that time in your day. So if you believe in something, make space for it, for example. Or, maybe you're still weighing your options. You're not quite sure, and that's where the retrograde shows up. But this is some big energy, this new moon. It's the fire to your air. And fire and air typically have something to say, something to share, and have places to go. Scorpio, Mars is your planet, and Mars is big and bright in something called your 10th. The 10th is your public life. It is your reputation. It is your career. It is the title after your name, and it's the role that people see you as. It's a very visible place for you to be, which seems a little bit ironic. That's Leo would be Scorpio's highest sign, but there you go. And it's just a reminder, we'll talk more about this next week, that Mars is going to turn retrograde on December 6th. In fact, and I said this, I think, for Aries, if you look out in the sky at night, you'll see Mars coming up over the horizon, depending on where you are in the world, and it's big and bright because it's about to turn retrograde. Retrograde is going to take you into, I think, the end of February. So it's this time to not push forward. It's a time to reevaluate. Last time we had a retrograde was, I think, the end of 2022 into the beginning of 2023. So here we are again. It happens every 2 years, but this time it will be between Leo, your professional life, and Cancer, which is a space that talks about what do you believe in, what do you stand for. So there's probably this shifting need to reorganize and reevaluate your professional needs and sort of what fuels that, and maybe needing to orient your career in a slightly different way based on your beliefs, your truth, and your convictions. Speaking of which, we have a Sagittarius New moon on December 1st. Sagittarius is something called your second sign of money, income, material stability, and security. I know it's not your birthday anymore, Scorpio, so it's time to take all these new beginnings and to make them concrete and to make them real and to also focus on resources. What do you need going forward? On a broader level for Scorpio, it is about money, the money that you make, the money that you spend, these sort of bigger questions about value and worth, and I would even just say self-worth. With Mercury retrograde in this space, it's probably not the time to make big monetary investments. This is one of the times where I will put some caution when it comes to Mercury retrograde, because Mercury in this space might mean that you don't have all the information. So to the best of your ability, maybe wait to the new year, but maybe use this time to do a little bit of fact-finding, especially with Mercury square Saturn. It helps to make sure that you are thorough in your research, for example. Oh, and I will add, because the energy of the new moon points towards your eighth, and the eighth is assets, it is finance, it is financial planning, it is legacies, it is estate planning. But there is something about money, income, and value and worth that's very highlighted with this new moon. Sagittarius. Sagittarius, Jupiter is your planet, and it's in Gemini since May. And we have a big, bold Sagittarius new moon on December 1st. So if it is your birthday, happy birthday, Sagittarius, on the 1st, plus or minus a couple of days, it is a big new year for you. It is a year that brings your energy over towards relationships. And that may mean for some Sages, it's a busy new year, new personal year. People are coming into your life. Maybe they're coming out of your life. Maybe you're just socializing more. I will say Jupiter continues to be in a square to Saturn. So this is not just people for people's sake, but it's also about, really getting, spending quality time with people that you want to spend time with, creating more solid connections, for example. But there is a dynamic energy that's happening in your astrology at the moment. Regardless of when your birthday is, Sag, it is a new beginning. Even if you're Sag rising, this is the reset point for your personal astrology. And this astrology does focus on relationships, but it also focuses on family. Why? Saturn continues to be in a space in your chart, Sag, that talks about, or rather asks a couple of simple questions. Where is home and who is home? And whether that means that you've made a major move this year, or you're thinking about making a major move this year, Sagittarius, or maybe you are spending more time with family, or maybe you're starting a family, or maybe you're just sort of thinking more philosophically about the role of family and home in your life. But it continues to be a big time for you, Sag. It's just one of those quote unquote settling down phases in your life. Doesn't mean that you stop having fun, you stop having adventures. And with Mercury retrograde, maybe some old relationships might pop up. That's just kind of on brand. Mercury, again, making some squares to Saturn. So it is to reevaluate a relationship. It is to have maybe some serious conversations with people. I think to make stronger relationships, or to set a boundary, a clear boundary about who will be in your life and who will not be in your life. Capricorn, Saturn is your planet. It's in Pisces still, I know. But this just continues to be a time in your life where you need to focus on education. Education, whether that's formal education, whether that means just being more curious, trying things out, getting different points of view. Then there's the Sagittarius new moon. This Sag new moon is at the end of your personal astrology. So if Capricorn is a start point, and that's whether you are Capricorn sun or Capricorn rising, Sagittarius is the sign that comes before you. It represents the end of your personal zodiac. Sag means that you need to spend the next, especially the Sag new moon on the 1st of December. This is a month for you to go within, all in advance of your birthday, whether you need to rest, whether you need to recuperate, whether you need to focus on your spiritual and emotional health and wellness. And do keep in mind that with this Sag new moon, you have Jupiter, ironically, pointing you towards a part of the chart that talks about being, having your feet in the world. And so there's a push and pull with this new moon. This is like, how do you find the balance between being a human being and all the things that really come with it, but not forgetting about the bigger picture, not forgetting about that you're a spiritual being as well. For some Capricorns, it is about health and wellness, needing to also really invest as you go into the new year in your physical health and wellness. This also could mean creating rituals, reorganizing your life. And with the squares, because this new moon plus Jupiter plus Mercury, even though it's retrograde, is making a square to Saturn, there is something about needing to reevaluate, needing to get serious. And I know you are ruled by Saturn, Capricorn, but it doesn't mean that there aren't these points in your life or points in the year where more is asked of you. More discernment, more follow through, more practice, more accountability, more maturity. I know. But I think these things are all really hedged upon, putting it towards the things that actually have meaning and purpose for you. Not just responsibility for responsibility's sake, not just accountability for accountability's sake, but to really work that around the things that feed you, body, mind, and soul. Aquarius. So Saturn is your planet. It's still in Pisces. It'll be in Pisces for quite some time. This still continues to be a larger chapter of your life that is devoted towards money, income, material stability, and security. Each month, even though this is a much longer transit, it's another page in the story. Whether that story is to literally make more money and make more material stability and security in your life, whether this is about getting more philosophical about what truly is important and of value, and what do you invest your time and money in, or maybe this is about self-worth and value. Maybe it's about all of the above. Maybe this is a good time to ask Aquarius, how are you doing? Because now Pluto is in your sign. It will be there for a couple of decades. I know you heard me correctly. And this continues to be a major inflection point in your life. I know that's a big statement. Every Aquarius is probably living a different version of this statement. But with that in mind, I think that's where Saturn says, but having said all that, what's truly important, what's truly of value? Then there's the Sagittarius new moon. Sagittarius is something called your 11th sign. The 11th sign is nearly to the end of your personal astrology. And on some level, this is a month, so December, to really focus on friends, community, your sense of belonging, your social network, whether that means spending more time with your friends, whether that means getting philosophical about the role of this in your world, creating allies and alliances. And for some Aquariuses, it is about looking towards the world, looking towards the future, dreaming, hoping, for something better, or even dreaming and hoping about the year to come. With this full moon, it is pointing its energy of Jupiter towards your 5th. So we have some push and pull with this new moon around identity. Who are you versus where does that fit in the greater whole? Do you have friends? Do you have people that really can truly see you? Do you truly see yourself, for example? Do you value yourself, for example? With the new moon, and even with the Gemini full moon of December 15th, that's really pinging off of Saturn, which I realize is your planet. But there's just something about this month that says that making some sort of decision about your future or some sort of reevaluation about who you are and how you share yourself with the world, and maybe even how you invest again in friends and community, and even to build community in your life. Finally, Pisces. Pisces. So Jupiter is your planet, and it continues to be in your fourth sign: home, family, roots, foundation. I realize this is going to mean different things to different Pisces or Pisces rising, but that's the thing about this part of the chart: family and home. It's one of the 4 pillars of your personal astrology. And it says that when we don't have that sense of belonging or that sense of connection or feeling safe or having like a place to really call home, it can create some sort of issues in our life. And that's just more of a blanket statement. It's not to say it's necessarily relevant for you, but this continues to be a time to nourish this part of your life. Then there's the Sag new moon, and Sag is something called your 10th sign. It is in the highest part of your personal astrology, the most public part of your personal astrology. And on a very sort of basic surface level, it says that over the next 4 weeks, it could be a change in your professional life, a time to renew the role and responsibilities that you carry in the world. It could be new initiatives in your professional life or new initiatives in the world. It could be a time when there's a lot of eyes on you, so to speak. But there is, again, this push and pull between your external world and your external responsibilities, but also your internal world and your internal needs. And how do you find the balance between both of them? You've heard me say this week in and week out: Saturn is in your sign. Saturn is in Pisces. This continues to be a period of your life that will take you into the beginning of 2026 that is asking more of you. What is the baseline of that question in your life? What would more look like? Do you need to take on more responsibility? Do you need to carve out more space in the world? Do you need to set boundaries and say no to people? Do you need to reprioritize things in your life? But it just continues to be one of those, at least on paper, of course we're all different people, milestone times in your life, Pisces. And I would say, especially going back to Mercury retrograde, it doesn't mean that you need to pump the brakes going into the rest of the year. I think to move forward in the world, but make sure you're listening to yourself, you're listening to your intuition, you're listening to people in your life, listening to friends, so you can have a lot of different viewpoints, so that when Mercury goes direct in December, you can move forward in a different way. So that is your look at the astrology of November 25th through December 1st, 2024. I appreciate you all. You can find me online at empoweringastrology.com. Some of you are my clients, so book a consultation with me. How can we sort of see not just about the new moon, but I love presenting the chart to people, your personal birth chart, your personal space that you have in this life. And it's my belief that this space was created, purpose-built, created for you to discover something in this lifetime and to find your purpose, for example. Again, go to my website, empoweringastrology.com. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Spotify, I'm on YouTube. So yes, for those that are celebrating, happy Thanksgiving. I know family is always interesting, but thank you for being part of my family. So I will see you all next week, and until then, take care. Bye-bye.